Welcome again to another episode of Keep It Fictional with the Port Moody Public Library. So this is part 2 of our top 2021 picks. So last week we talked about our bottom 3. I can't get this right. Bottom 3 picks, number 3 to number 5. And today we are going to let you know about our top 2 picks. But first, let's talk a little bit about our reading year in 2021. I know we all have a very different reading year, and I mean, it is not unusual if your reading year is not a reading year at all this year, because this year is weird. So I have asked all my friends to pick one word to describe their reading year and let us know why you picked that one word. So Liz, what is your word to describe your reading year?
I'm going to say my reading word for 2021 was variable. 2020 reading was like that life raft for me, and I clung to it desperately. This year, yeah, kind of tapered off with some of the reading at times. Been reading a lot more happier books, which if you've been listening to the podcast, you know that's not usually my MO. And also reading a lot more picture books, so I guess which would fall in the happier category. So it's like I finished a book, check, and it made me feel good, check, and there are lots of nice pictures, check. So but hey, I think that's a great thing. There's lots of great picture books out there, so don't knock them. Yeah, variable, not negative, not super positive. It's okay.
How about you, Fiona?
Scattered, like not necessarily unproductive or like unenjoyable. Definitely it was a good reading year, but it was just kind of like all over the place. I dabbled a lot. But I don't know. It's just like when I looked, like when I was trying to pick my 2021 picks, like there just wasn't a whole lot on there. Yet I had read a fair amount this year. But actually it seemed like a lot of them were from 2020. So I think that's just poor planning.
How about you, Miss Corrine?
Ooh, my word is distracting. I honestly had the worst reading year that I've ever had. I just couldn't focus on anything. I couldn't sit down for anything. I just was too filled with anxiety to do that. And usually books are like my go-to when I'm feeling a lot of those emotions, but I just couldn't get myself to kind of sit down and read a book. So it's been a really disappointing reading year, which is too bad, but I'm hoping that 2022 will be a little bit better.
And I think for me, I would say the word is demanding, because I actually find that I was asking more from my books, like, because I feel like same thing, I needed my books to help me focus. So I wanted more from my books. It had to be like really great writing, great stories to pull me in. But I was also looking for books that demand more from me also, that books that are like challenging me, books that like makes me focus, books that are so strange that I'd have to like, pay attention to it, and books that really make me change the way I'm thinking, like, and I was really gravitating towards those. So it was that's kind of my year. Yeah, so, and it's okay, if like you have a different kind of reading year, because it is all good. But we have some great picks that we shared last week and some great picks we're going to share today. So whatever year you're having, whether you are going to finish the year with some of our suggestions maybe, or start the new year with some of our picks, we hope that you will find something that is interesting to you. So I cannot wait to find out what books are on people's top 2 list. So let's start with Corrine.
Okay, so my question for my book is, what do mid-level marketing schemes, Jonestown, the Rocky Horror Picture Show, timeshares,
and CrossFit all have in common? Well, according to the author Amanda Montell, we would describe them as cultish. Now, what exactly do we mean by a cult? I know that I often say, I love a cult. I love a cult story. But what do we actually mean when we get down to it as to what defines a cult? And it turns out that there is actually no academic understanding of what a cult is. When I say Jonestown or Heaven's Gate, we understand what that is without necessarily being able to articulate it. But if I say that Peloton is a cult, do we understand the word the same way, even though it feels a little bit similar? And how do we distinguish between what could be a benign cult, like being a Swiftie or army, and an evil cult, as someone like Nexium and Keith Raniere? And at the heart of it, how and why do people want to join a cult? So, in the amazing book, Cultish, The Language of Fanaticism by Amanda Montell, she seeks to answer all of these questions. And she says that cultishness or joining a cult is a very human thing. That not only are we facing a real epidemic, but there is the other underlying epidemic of loneliness. The human connection is something that we all crave. Meaning to life is something that we all crave. And so sometimes cults fill that gap for people. I think that Amanda Montell writes about this really sympathetically because her own father is a survivor of the Synanon cult. He escaped when he was a teenager, and she spent her entire life fascinated by this family history of how his parents joined, and more importantly, how did he get out? And through her research and scholarship and talking to various experts, Amanda Montell breaks down that really what brings people into a cult is language. It is language and the way that we use it and abuse it. This is a fascinating intersection between psychology and linguistics. And she breaks down how using things like us versus them language, loaded vocabulary or loaded language, thought terminating cliches, and building your own special vocabulary can isolate you from larger society and make you feel a part of a small, closed group. She goes through some of the most famous cults, Jonestown, Heaven's Gate, Nexium, and examines exactly how these leaders brought people in and brought them into that mind space. But she also looks at greater pulp culture things like Soul Cycle or mid-level marketing schemes, and rather pointedly, Trump, and how they use oratory and language to build followers and to build groups, and how to make them do things that they might not have done. She talks about how businesses and leaders use language to convince, coerce, and condition their followers. She says it's not brainwashing. Brainwashing isn't a thing. What they're doing is they are using their language like a weapon. And with wit and empathy and snark and a lot of really good expert information, in this book, she teaches you how to recognize that in your own life, how to listen to that little voice inside of you and says, I think I'm being manipulated, but I don't know how. It is a absolutely fantastic, groundbreaking look at how linguistics control how we think and how people who are aware of that can use that against us, whether it is a cult level or just a marketing or business trying to get us to very much buy a stationary bike. It is a fun, fast, and informative read, and I cannot recommend highly enough Cultish by Amanda Montell.
Thank you, Corinne. We love a good cult here. I'm pretty sure we love a good cult here. This is like, what do you speak for yourself? What do you mean we? You maybe. All right, Fiona, what have you got for your number 2 pick?
So I've got another graphic novel. This is my third graphic novel out of my top 5, which is interesting because I think I've actually read more novels this year than like maybe any other year in my life. So I don't know. I guess you like what you like. And I really want to draw attention to it because I think it may get missed because it is in the kids section and it's in the nonfiction section with art books because it is about artists. It is my very favorite, most favorite kind of graphic novel. It is an anthology biographies. I love to learn about real people with pictures, which is why I always find my biographies in the kids section. It is Before They Were Artists, Famous Illustrators as Kids by Elizabeth Hadel. So this is a lovely anthology of biographies about Hayao Miyazaki, Tove Johnson, Maurice Sendak, Yu Morales, Jerry Pinkey, and Wanda Gag. So as a children's librarian, this was a pretty exciting book to find and read because I do tend to be more like illustrator focused. It looked at artists from many different time periods and what they were like in their childhood. So a lot of them are sort of like they were real trailblazers for children's illustration. Wanda Gag is the illustrator for Millions of Cats, which is a classic kids book. And then of course there's Maurice Sendak. And then Tove Johnson, who is the creator of Moomins, Moomin Trolls. Jerry Pinkey, who does The Lion and the Mouse. Yu Morales is a contemporary illustrator, and she did Dreamers, which is a book that makes me cry, and I absolutely love. And then I hadn't even like read it on the cover. I got to the last one. I was like, oh, like I just, I got to finish this. I got to take it back. And then it was about Hayao Miyazaki, who I have a portrait of him hanging in my living room and it takes up like a whole wall. So he's kind of like, I don't want to be blasphemous, but I'm gonna be blasphemous. Like he kind of has God status in my life. And I've actually like read a lot of a biography about him. And he also, like, a lot of it is woven into his movies. But this, I'm getting so excited, I'm like, can't talk. Is about his childhood, which was really interesting because I didn't know a lot about his childhood. And it talks about his dad, who designed aircrafts for World War II. Yes, that makes sense. And so that was really, really interesting. And then like even, reading about Tove Johnson, who I never really got into Moomins, but she is a queer illustrator. So she's always kind of been on my radar. And reading about these people who were, when they were kids, were those kids who, maybe didn't connect with other kids as much because they either had really eccentric parents or they were sitting in the corner just drawing and drawing and drawing and never stopping. And I don't know, I feel for people like that. I guess I feel connected to them, or really love the idea of people who want to create and who see that as their life's purpose. And a lot of, and that's certainly the way that the writer talked about a lot of these creators. Also, I think that she did a great job of pulling people from different times and different backgrounds. Names that we know, but then like seeing Yu Morales highlighted was sort of like, oh, I didn't I didn't expect her to be in there. That was pretty exciting. So again, like it does focus on childhood, and it is in the kids section, but definitely has a wider appeal than that. And even if you just think, oh, I love Hayao Miyazaki, pick it up for him and read all the rest.
Thank you, Fiona. Love the variety in that collection. Like it's nice to see. So thank you for that. All right. So I guess I will talk about again, switching gears a little bit. My book. I feel like it's like indicative of the year that there's like a lot of horror books on my list this year. Because 2021. So this book that definitely broke me. It's one that I talk about already on my most anticipated episode, but it broke me every time I think about this book. I just could feel my heart just clenching because it's a hard book to read. This is This Thing Between Us by Gus Moreno. Yeah, so I talked about this book before, a story of Tiago who have lost his wife and is dealing with life after. And you know, grief is a very personal thing. He feels very much that it belongs to him, that nobody understands it, but yet everybody is trying to tell him how he should grieve. It is also about a story dealing with life as a Mexican American and dealing with like immigrant lives. And of course, the haunted smart speaker. Itza, who does weird random deliveries to his house that play music at night suddenly and that have conversations with who knows what or whom that they are talking to. I think this book, just like Light from Uncommon Stars, it shows what great horror is capable of. It doesn't just scares you, it reaches deep inside your psyche and just drag out things that you don't even know is there. And I just feel like I love this book so much. I think I've never encountered a book where I feel like it described grief the way that feels so authentic to me. And it's just and the second half of the book is a total fever dream, which of course I love. Hands down the best horror novel that I have read this year, or in ages, actually, not just this year. So give horror is your thing, because I know it's not everybody's thing, but if horror is your thing and you wanted to see some new horror, you are maybe like, you read all your Stephen King, you need something different because a lot of horror that are out there like that is very different. Please do check out This Thing Between Us by Gus Moreno. Okay, Liz, your number 2 pick, please.
Okay. Another book that I think hasn't gotten as much recognition as it should have this year. Yes, trying to find those diamonds in the rough. This one, the New York Public Library did put it on their best of 2021 list. Thank you. And they have said that this is a highly stylized assassin narrative. Think Murder on the Orient Express. Yes, Corinne. But written by Quentin Tarantino. Yes, Virginia. Okay, so this one is called Bullet Train. It's by Kotaro Isakka, and it's been translated into English by Sam Melissa. Now, don't let the fact that they have produced a feature film for this coming out in 2022 deter you from reading this book. Please don't screw it up for me. This is one of those books where, like, normally I'm receptive to seeing how it translates to film. This is one of those books where I kind of don't want to watch the film because the book was so good. So fast paced, just like the bullet train or Shinkansen that it takes place on. So this train is leaving Tokyo for a northern city named Morioka. However, not everybody on this train is who they may seem to be. We have a diverse cast of characters, everyone from Lemon and Tangerine. These are like their assassin names because yes, they are assassins. They are on the train, they're on a mission, actually delivering some precious cargo to a very wealthy man that they have been contracted by. There's also Naneo, who is nicknamed the Ladybird, and he has got to be the unluckiest guy ever. Every single job that he completes, if he happens to come out unscathed, he just always has something go wrong, and he almost always expects the other shoe to drop, and yet he keeps on being an assassin. So he is on a mission of his own on this very same train. We also have the prince, who is an innocent looking schoolboy in his blazer and uniform on this train during school hours. However, don't be fooled, because he is anything but innocent. These are just a handful of characters who are on this train, all for supposedly different reasons, different purposes, different missions, different contracted activities. However, I just love how the action is nonstop, and somehow along the way, Isakka manages to give you a bit of backstory behind these different characters, why they do what they do, why they are the way they are, who exactly they are, and eventually intertwines all of these storylines into one fantastic climax as the train approaches its final destination. So if you are looking for something that is fast-paced, if you are looking for a bit of a mystery, if you are looking for murder, then this book will probably be up your alley. It's Bullet Train by Kotaro Isakka.
I actually am reading that one right now, Liz. So great. It is a great pick. I think my favorite thing is that I can't remember if it's Lemon or Tangerine is obsessed with Thomas the Tank Engine, which is just a delight.
Apparently that's very big in Japan, Thomas and Friends. So yeah, I think I would have gotten even more of it if I had already been well versed in Thomas and Friends. It's not a prerequisite though, so don't let that deter you.
I'm glad you picked this because I'm not sure that murder has been said yet in this.
Oh, yes.
Like usually it's just like the second word, every second word. And I think that's the first time we've had murder.
Usually every second word out of my mouth. I was trying to dance around it in Cultish. I was trying to be like, don't worry, if you're not into it, it's fine. It's actually about linguistics.
You're right. We haven't said murder yet. What's wrong with us? Weird. So strange. All right. Well, thank you. Those are our number 2 picks. So, okay, everybody warm up because we are going to do our honorable mentions now. And so everybody get about a minute or so to name as many books as you can that you want to give a shout out to. The books that didn't quite make it, but still are great that we just want to. And I feel like sometimes the book didn't make it not because they're not good enough. It's just more like, you pick 5 that you want to highlight, and there are many different reasons for us highlighting those, but these are great books. So more titles for you for your reading list. So Corinne, let's start with you.
Okay, I'm going to go with my alternate number 3 pick, which was the Anthropocene Reviewed by John Green, which is just like a beautiful humanist review of different things in the world, like sycamore trees, Piggly Wigglies, Lascaux cave paintings, and the movie Penguins of Madagascar. It is just a beautiful set of short essays, which essentially like grades things in the world out of 5 stars. I love John Green. It is just like a beautiful thing to read during the pandemic, and I loved it so much. Back on my train again, Don't Call It a Cult by Sarah Berman is a wonderful investigative journalism view at the Nexium and Keith Raniere. Very well written, was one of the first journalists to really break the case and puts it out in a very systematic, understandable view, but you will end up screaming. And then some other honorable mention, Harlem Shuffle, at least the first 2/3 of Harlem Shuffle, the last third didn't care for it, by Colson Whitehead, and Hanakan Carries On, which was a fantastic, one of the best romances of the year that I read. Whew, done.
Nicely done. Nicely done. All right, Fiona, are you ready for your shout out?
Yes, but mine are not from 2021 because I didn't read many. So they are 2020 and earlier because that's how time works. Oh, should I go?
Go for it.
Tied for first favorite book of the year, which was the first one I read this year, and I loved it on audiobook, seriously, by Madeline Miller. Also, shout out to A Tale for the Time Being, which featured my favorite None Yet by Ruth Ozeki. I finally got on the train and read the 5th season by N.K. Genesis this year. The Subtweet by Vivek Shreya is an excellent book about queer people, but does not focus on romance. Interior Chinatown, of course, can't shout it out enough, by Charles Yu. And my tied for first favorite book of the year, thank you, Virginia, Everything Sad is Untrue by Daniel Nayeri. Everyone should read that book. I feel like I lost a friend when I finished that book. Still kind of reeling from it, and yeah, trying to adjust to not having it in my life. All books I read this year.
Thank you, Fiona. All right, Liz, are you ready to go?
Okay, I think so. Bear with me here. Okay, first up we have Just Missed the Cat, Ace of Spades by Farida Abike Yamide. Billed as Gossip Girl meets Get Out in this YA contemporary dark academia thriller. Absolutely loved it. Listen to the audiobook if you can. They've got voice actors for both Chiamaka and Devon. It's Encyclopedia Exotica by Aminder Dhaliwal. Fantastic portrayal of the fictional Cyclops race as an allegory for racism and discrimination faced by other cultures. We also have Yearbook by Seth Rogen. I totally am not into cannabis culture, and yet you don't have to be to enjoy this book. He's entertaining without being snarky, and he drops names and stories without being mean, which is pretty cool in my book. My Brilliant Life by Aaron Kim. It was on my most anticipated reads of winter 2021 list. Actually really loved it. Heartbreaking, a typical Liz book, well, Liz of 2020 maybe. Heartbreaking yet uplifting. Got a shout out also, I concur with Virginia Light from Uncommon Stars, Rika Aoki, a recent read of mine, and I just absolutely loved it. Took me back to my days of playing violin, although not nearly at the level of the Hell Queen. And also, where is it? The Waiting, Kim Suk Gendry Kim, about the separation of North and South Korea and the families that were displaced by that. Also, non-2021 picks that I read in 2021. I want to give a shout out to Missing from the Village by Justin Ling. It is the story of a serial killer, Bruce MacArthur, the search for justice and the system that failed Toronto's queer community. And also Horseplay, My Time Undercover on the Granville Strip by Norm Boucher. Two fantastic true crime picks that were published at the end of 2020. Finally read them in 2021, and I highly recommend them both. Do not miss out on those.
We can talk really fast. All right. So for mine, first one, Dangers of Smoking in Bed by Mariana Enrique, translated by Megan Batao. That is the first story, short story collection that made me decided, hey, short stories are awesome. The first story about that ghost baby following the main character around was what did it for me. It was amazing, shockingly grotesque, really funny, but also amazing. Totally converted me. Body Scout by Lincoln Michelle. How dare you, Lincoln Michelle, make me read a book about baseball? Like, what is going on? And Cyberpunk, which I also don't like, but I read it. I love it. It was like one of those books that I finished. I'm like, wow, this is satisfying. The ending makes so much sense. It was just, everything just fits. So great baseball book. And then, of course, two books I need to mention in the same time, Iron Widow by Siren J. Chow, local author, and She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan. Both great books. If you are done with the patriarchy, if you're talking about characters who just, you feel like they could take on the world, but at the same time, they're also making really, really tough decisions about life because life sucks. And, just that transformation of the characters, amazing. And then anybody who had to do a lot of computer work this year and working from home, several people are typing by Calvin Kazuke. Just everybody has to read it. A book where the body just went into the Slack channel, and there is great working from home office book. And two novella that I have to shout out to, Defect by Nino Cipri, the second book in the Littenverse series, the Haunted IKEA Wormhole book, and also Album of Dr. Monroe by Daryl Gregory, Boy Band, Lockroom Mystery, Science Experiments. I mean, what more do I want? I forgot to cover Twilight Zone. This, I talk about the dictatorship book by Nona Fernandez, translated by Natasha Wimmer. It's just that whole weird disappearing people. It helps me kind of understand the world that is happening right now, especially in Hong Kong, where I grew up. I don't understand what's going on there, but it's scary. And that book kind of helped me get through it. And the last book, I cannot say the name, I don't think, but I'm just going to show you. Got the best cover ever, I feel like. A woman who one day woke up and felt that there was a little bit of hair growing out from the back of her neck and suspects she might be turning into a dog. Best book cover, at least. So those are my honorable mentions. You look suspicious, Corinne.
Just like if hair's growing at the back of your neck, my first thought isn't, well, I must be turning into a dog.
And she is, maybe.
So I expected murder to be said a lot because that was 2020's theme. And for Virginia, it was cannibalism for 2020. But I forgot this is a whole new year. And this year, Virginia's is hair. And probably instead of murder for Corinne, it's cults.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That is for sure my theme of the year.
And I was expecting more nuns, Fiona. What's going on?
Liz, what would you say your theme is, though? What's the Liz theme?
Variable. She told us already. So that's why there's no one word.
We still have a book to go, though. So, don't want to spoil the surprise.
Well, so far there's no overlap titles. So don't know what's going on.
Virginia, you and I both know what's about to happen.
Oh, all right. Okay. Well, for our final pick, this is the top book of our year, the best of the best, the one that made the most difference in our life, the ones that we love the most. What book is it, Fiona?
All right. So in true Fiona fashion, I have chosen an understated book. I've described it before, but because I don't often choose plot-driven novels, sometimes I realize that I jump all over the place when I describe them. So I'm going to try to speak slowly, and do a better job this time. My number one pick is Last Night at the Telegraph Club by Melinda Lowe. This book is a historical fiction and it is YA. It's set in 1954 and follows Lily who lives in Chinatown. She is a high school student who kind of flies under the radar. She's well behaved. She has a best friend, Shirley, who has a little more pizzazz than she has. Shirley is decided to enter the pageant for the young women in Chinatown and asks for Lily's help. However, Lily and Shirley have slowly been growing apart, and it's no secret to Shirley that that has to do with another girl, Kath, who Lily has met. Kath is a white girl who takes Lily to the Telegraph Club, where there are male impersonators. They go out secretly at night. This is the worst, most disobedient thing that Lily has ever done. And yet she feels like herself. She feels alive. She can't deny that not only is she extremely excited about the male impersonator, she's excited about this burgeoning relationship with Kath, and is realizing that she is actually a lesbian. This is, of course, complicated for her because she realizes that, or she suddenly feels like she is herself finally, but she also realizes that telling her parents is going to be incredibly hard and may mean that she is not able to stay with them. It's a wonderful book, a really, really great representation, LGBT book, and historical fiction. Last Night at the Telegraph Club by Melinda Lowe.
All right, Liz, are you ready to tell us about your number one 2021 reading pick?
Okay, here's the big reveal. So for my number one pick for the year 2021, I am picking a familiar author. If you are familiar with our Best of 2020 episode. So this author's first book, the previous book in this series, shocking, yes, I am reading a series, was my number two pick of the previous year. So last year, I chose The Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osmond as a number two pick. But this year, maybe even more shocking than me reading a series, is me picking a sequel to surpass that first book and be my number one choice. And that is Richard Osmond's The Man Who Died Twice. Shocking on many levels, series, sequel, feel good. What is happening here? What has happened to my brain during this pandemic? Well, I gotta say, Osmond beautifully balances the characters we have known to come to know and love from the first book, The Thursday Murder Club, with more murder, but also some feel-good relationships and backstories. So in this book, we rejoin Elizabeth, Joyce, Ron, and Ibrahim, our favorite septuagenarians. And at the very start of the book, a man from Elizabeth's past shows up. Not only that, there are stolen diamonds involved, underworld crime figures, and yes, that thing called murder. So I wouldn't call this a cozy mystery, but a feel-good murder, if there is such a thing. I don't know. Corrine seems to get it. You'll get it in a minute, Fiona. If there was such a thing as a feel-good murder, this would be it. I loved learning more about our band of Thursday Murder Clubbers. Just showing that, that life is not over when you hit those senior years. And Osmond just has this way of surprising you at different twists and turns when you don't expect it. Like, I think it was maybe the end of chapter 2 or 3. They're all pretty short chapters, which is a plus in my book. And on occasion, he will just leave you with a comment or a thing that happens where you go, I didn't see that coming, but I liked it. So if you are looking for something murdery and yet on the lighter side, on the heartfelt side, makes you feel some feelings. And if you're insanely curious about who is this man who died not only once, but twice, then I definitely recommend my number one pick for 2021, The Man Who Died Twice by Richard Osmond.
Thanks, Liz. The first one has been on my list for a long time since you book talked that one. So read it.
This is such
Even
a
better.
shocking turn of events. Shocking turn of events.
I don't know what has happened. It's just that kind of year.
Right. Okay, so I think there's just one pick left.
Just
Right.
one book left.
One book left for you and me, Corinne. And there's a reason why we sort of left it to the two of us. Because why, Corinne? What's happening?
Improbably, we have our unicorn book of the year, where the Venn diagram of Virginia and I eclipse into a single title. And inexplicably, although, you know what, this also happened last year. If I had remembered that Interior Chinatown was written last year, and I think it also would have been that kind of like eclipse unicorn read. But improbably, impossibly, magically, and probably a testament to how good this book really is that both Virginia and I actually have the same book as our number one pick of 2021.
I can't. Don't understand. But see, like you said, that shows how good the book is, right? That it will satisfy everybody, even people who are on the complete opposite of the world. So what is it, Corinne? I know you brought it with you.
I did bring it with me because actually upon your recommendation, I purchased this book before reading it, which is kind of like my modus operandi. That's fine. And I'm actually really, really glad that I have it, because I think for both of us, this is a book that we're going to be going back to.
Yeah, and I purchased it after I read it because I knew for the first time well, that's not true because Interior Chinatown did that too. But for like the second time in my life, I know it is a book that I'm going to reread, which also doesn't happen very frequently. So yeah.
No, it is the genre defying, possibly best written book that I've read in a long, long time. It is, oh gosh, how to describe it, Virginia? It is a horror, a literary fiction, a fantasy, a murder mystery, an exploration of folklore, an exploration of colonialism. It's everything in a tightly wrought package. So our joint, the words coming out of my mouth, choking on it. Our joint number one pick of 2021 is Violet Cooper Smith's Build Your House Around My Body.
And we have talked about this book multiple times, and I feel like we'll find an excuse to bring it up again. Maybe when Fiona reads it next year, or maybe when Liz reads it next year. I hope that they will do. Yeah, I think you're right. Like, it's just, I don't understand how a book like can have all the things in there that every single element has a point. Like, there is nothing that is just there for the heck of it. It is every single thing means something. And I think the joy of discovering, like the first time you realize, wait a second, that thing is that thing, and then like when you start making the connection, it is so much fun. And I think that's what this book you can reread it like multiple times, and I'm sure like you would discover new things in it because there's just so intricately plotted, and there's just it's so exciting, and it is what you're like, it fits all the genres. If it's like so many, so you can't really sort of like classify it in that way, but there's just so much in it, and the writing is so good, like, and again, this is like, she has a collection of short stories, which of course I can't wait to get into that, but like there's a short story, this is her first novel. Like, how are you, like, how did you come up with this the first time? It's amazing.
Yeah, it's puzzles within puzzles. It's a revenge story. It's a ghost story. It's about possessed bodies and possessed lands, and about the generations bound together by the ghosts of the past. But yeah, like it's so smart. It's like the smartest book that I have really encountered in such a long time. And it doesn't spell things out for you. It really just kind of takes you on this journey. And then the more you sit with it and the more you think, the more impressed you are about like the level of thought that went into this. And yeah, it continually, and I continually find myself thinking about it, which, you know, is the mark of a really, really good book, is that sometimes you'll just sit there and like, oh, wait, that was also connected to that. And that meant that. Yeah, I really hope that people aren't maybe that aren't dissuaded or scared of the fact that it's kind of marketed as like a horror story or a scary story that has got those fantastical elements, because it is about so much more than that. It is so layered and so leveled that I really hope people take a chance on this, even though it might be out of when they read the description, it might be a little bit out of their comfort zone.
Yeah, and it looks like a big book, like it, you know, it looks kind of chunky, but like it's just there's so it like I said, nothing is wasted. It's not a book just having words there for the sake of having those words. Like like all the pages, every single page is necessary for the story. And it is, yeah, so good.
It's so good. You can't escape your past. You cannot escape your past because it's coming around to get you. To get you. Yeah. I think well deserved. I hope it gets all the praise. I hope it wins all the awards.
It hasn't. I'm so mad. Like I keep every single time I keep looking, I'm like, why? Why aren't more people talking about this book?
I know. And I think it was on NPR's best of 2021 list.
Yeah,
which,
but there was
again,
out of like 100 of them, right? So
I know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I hope that you listening pick it up and give it a chance and then pass it into other hands. I think a spectacular book like this deserves to have a light shone on it and brightly to support such a unique and amazing talent.
So if one liked audiobooks, how do you think it would translate to an audiobook?
I think it'd be fine. Oh, of course, speaking as someone who doesn't listen to audiobooks, I can't
Sure
really
it's
say as
good.
to one. I'm sure it's fine. I'm sure it's good. I hope.
Well, you know, I will read it soon and then we can talk about it again.
Yay.
All right. And of course, we can't end the year without getting in another one of our existential questions, which is, what have you got lined up for the rest of the year? We are recording now at the beginning of December, so we still have a couple more weeks to squeeze those reads in. And you look ahead and you're like, oh, that's a couple of weeks. I can read all of these. Feeling very ambitious. How about the rest of you? Liz, what do you got on your plate?
So many books, so little time. This is a little stress inducing because I want to keep up with what's in 2021. Otherwise, I'm going to run into the same problem next year. In 2022, trying to catch up while also reading the new books. But I am hoping to pick up a couple of really well-regarded books before the end of the year. This one I already had come in on hold, so I'm going to make some time to read this. And this one is The Love Hypothesis by Hazelwood. They're in a lab. I don't know, there's this spark between them, maybe. I don't know. On the cover, the guy seems kind of not really into it at first, but I think we all kind of know where this is going to go. So another hopefully feel-good book to end the year off with. And then to balance that out, The Last House on Needless Street by Catriona Ward. So a horror book. Stephen King has said, quote, "I've read it and was blown away." Now, I'm not a Stephen King fan, but he sold a few books. So, if anybody knows something about writing horror and suspense, it would be Mr. King. So, and there's a cat on the cover. It looks spooky. And again, another really well-regarded book that's This one is maybe flown a little bit under the radar, so hoping it is a good one.
Maggie Stiefvater also promoted that one over Twitter. I will say, if you have anything against violence to animals, that is not the book for you. I had to tap out a little early.
Okay, I'm reconsidering this now. Stay tuned. How about you, Corinne? What's on your end of 2021 radar?
Yeah, the holidays for me are a very, very chill time. I just sit in my house with my box of Poirot chocolates and like some candles out and watch all the holiday specials and read all the books. So this is actually a time where I get a ton of reading done. As opposed to some people who might have very busy holiday seasons, I have a very, very chill holiday season. So I have like a stack of books at home. Obviously, I've got The Man Who Died Twice by Richard Osmond, because I also thought the first one was absolutely stellar. I also have a book by a local author, Colleen Van Niekerk, who wrote The Conspiracy of Mothers, which is getting some great reviews. And the author is a total delight and was on the Writers in Our Midst series. And I heard a little bit of the story and I cannot wait to start it. There is also the last book in the Good Girl's Guide to Murder, which is As Good as Dead by Holly Jackson, which is a great YA series if you are into the intersection of podcasting and murder, which I am. And just to make things kind of on the sadder side, I have Human Acts by Han Kang, which I'm sure is going to be extremely depressing for the holidays, which is what I want, and Crying in H Mart, which I have heard amazing reviews about. And in the holidays, I just want to cry. So that's what I'm going to go for. What about you, Fiona?
All right. Yeah, I've got a big list and a big stack that has already been taken out. I've got She Drives Me Crazy on audiobook waiting for me by Kelly Quinlan. It is a female love story YA, and it's about basketball. So that sounds pretty much up my, like, when I'm just looking for something chill and fun. Very excited about that. And that's a 2021. My book club is reading Z, a novel of Zelda Fitzgerald by Therese Fowler. Yeah, I don't have a lot of choice there, but I do really love reading about the Fitzgeralds, like, just so you can be like, wow. I'm glad I'm not like that. Okay.
So much alcohol, though.
Yeah. I am reading one I'm hoping to talk about next week, The Second Bell by Gabriella Houston, which is a fun fantasy sci-fi, kind of wildernessy that I'm enjoying quite a lot. Alone in Space, a collection by Tilly Walden. Even if the story's not great, the art will be beautiful. Aristotle and Dante Dive into the Waters of the World by Benjamin Sands. I can't wait. I can't believe I didn't read it this year. I'm kind of mad at myself that I didn't get it done before the 2021 picks, because it's supposed to be superb. And finally, Finding the Mother Tree, Discovering the Wisdom of the Forest by S. Simmerd. I believe they are a UBC researcher, and it's been getting a lot of buzz. It's a nonfiction about trees. So I feel like that'll kind of like cover my basis. I really hope I finish some of them. All right, Virginia, what have you got planned for the rest of the year?
I have so many. I have so many. Like, I was trying to like read as much 2021 as I can so that I can pick my top five, the right top five. But there's so many books I haven't got to yet. But I think the one I'm most excited to get to is J Legacy by Fonda Lee. It's the final book in the trilogy, and I cannot wait to find out what happened. There's been like really, really good reviews about it. So I think it's going to be a satisfying ending, and I believe in Fonda Lee. So it's going to be good. So it's the Greenbone saga that I think we talk about on this show at some point. So that is probably my what I'm finishing the year off. And I'm also have some 2022 stuff lined up. So I'm pretty excited about those two. So yeah, that is but J Legacy is fairly long, so I'm gonna get into that first, and hopefully I'm gonna have to recover from that because every time you finish a series, you just feel like, oh, now what, So after that, I'll figure out what to do. But very excited about that book. Yeah, so I guess those are our top 5 picks for the year. And I know we all have like other like many other books that we wanted to talk about that we couldn't. But yeah, so I think thank you to all the amazing books out there that really save our year, make the year just a little bit better, by having like such great stories that we can dive into. So thank you to all the authors out there. Thank you to all the publishers out there. Thank you. And I guess we'll see what happens in 2022.
Yeah, and thank all of our listeners for coming with us on this very, for us, arduous and difficult journey to choose our top 5. And we're interested. Let us know what were your top 5 of the year. What are the books that that we missed that we should have picked up and can maybe champion into the new year?
And I've said to Corinne already, when you find a book that you absolutely love, you have to tell me. I know. Yeah. We'll see. We'll see how that goes.
It happens, but once a year, and it then it's a really, really special book.
Yeah. So there will be one in 2022, right? There gotta be.
Yeah, it'll be about a cannibalistic nun who's in a cult, who also lives in a senior retirement facility, and it'll just combine all of our interests.
Yep.
Together
in graphic novel form. Obviously. Which Fiona will listen on audiobook? I don't know. I'm always baffled by graphic novels in audiobook. I don't understand them.
Yeah, if anyone does, please tell me. I want to know.
Yeah,
why
like
do they exist?
Yeah, exactly. When I see them, I'm like, why? You're missing half the story. Like, how? Anyway, all right. So thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful holiday. We will see you again in the new year. So we'll take a little bit of a break in the next couple of weeks, and we'll see you again in January 2022. All right. See ya. Bye.
happy reading, everyone. Happy reading.